Chapter 6 is about the accountability, your accountability, and your workplace relationships. So, what do I mean when I say your accountability? Well, your accountability is you taking responsibility for and ensuring whatever your name is attached to, and that reflects positively both on you and the employer. So, then you say, who is responsible for what? Who's accountable for what? If you're working in a team environment, who's accountable for the team, the work that is done? Well, that's a hard part. If you're doing teamwork, you're all held accountable. So if you have one person who isn't doing the work, you might as well get the project done because all of you are going to be held accountable. So the book talks about empowerment, and empowerment is giving giving power and decision-making ability to the person that is closest to the work or closest to the customer service, whatever it is, that will allow them to increase the quality of the service. So, is that good? Is that bad? If an employer empowers you to get a job done, it makes you feel like you're making a contribution, and often you'll perform better if you have that power. So within what really is tough is an employer has to make sure that you have certain limitations of your ability and your training. If an employer empowers you to do a job and you do not have the training or the education to do that job, you need to make sure that you tell them that you don't feel that you're capable of it, so that when the next time they try and empower you, they remember that. Otherwise, what they need to do is they need to get you the training or the education in order to complete the task. They need to get someone working with you. And you can always ask for that. Now, what about responsibility as far as a job environment? Who has the responsibility and who doesn't have responsibility? The responsibility is yours if you accept the empowerment to do a job. And responsibility, what that really is accepting the power given to you. You can accept it, or you can tell someone, no, I don't think I can do it. But you have to do it respectfully. Don't say, hey, I can't do that job. Say, I would love to do the job for you, but I don't feel that I'm trained. Is there someone that is trained that can help me? So that helps you gain the respect of the employer. They can trust that you know what you're talking about. And the other thing to really gain the trust of the employer is to report back to them and say the job is done. Don't ignore an assignment. If they give you an assignment and you don't think you can do it, don't ignore it and just let it sit there. Talk to the person giving you that power. Okay, so there's another thing. Personal accountability is each person, whether it be an employer or whether it be on your personal life, you have to be accountable for your performance at work and on the job and off the job in your personal life. Did you guys hear about the Navy, the commander of the Navy, that he went to the ship where the commander of the ship was removed, and he made a speech to, I think they said, about 5,000 crew members that were on board the ship, and he belittled that commander that was removed, and he called him stupid. And the Secretary of the Navy didn't even think that speech would be recorded And in today's society of the social media and the socialization, that speech was out there immediately. Well, the Secretary of the Navy was basically pressed to quit his job. So he quit, and he had to be accountable. You don't call people like that, especially those in high powers. So you have workplace relationships. We all act differently with different people. I would act differently with the dean of the division than I do with my sons. So it's just natural that you're on and off the job, you act differently. You need to be as consistent as possible, and your life will be a lot easier. Now, the book talks about how you are and how you act with different levels of staff or different levels of personalities and persons. With an executive or senior official, what you would do, you would have to show a lot of respect. You would have to be very cautious in the way you talk to them, keep it very, very professional, and just keep it to the job. Don't tell stories about the workplace. Don't draw attention to yourself. And don't speak bad of others. Now, if you were talking at home to your significant other, that's a different situation. But we have to watch out how you act and how your workplace relationships are. So, bosses, this is a good one. I talk about how you deal with bosses and everything. Bosses fall into three categories. And first of is the good boss. They're respectful of you, they're fair, they acknowledge your work, they treat you kindly, and more than anything, they train you for an advancement. So they see your strengths and focus you and move you towards advancement in that area. Then you have the abusive boss. This abusive boss belittles people, they intimidate people, they threaten the job. They're just really nasty, nasty to work with. But at least if you figure that out, you know how to work with them. Then the last type of boss is the incompetent boss. Out of the three, I almost think that the incompetent boss is the hardest person to work for. They don't know the job. They don't know the people. They make demands of you that are not within your job frame because they don't know what your job frame is. And they have no respect for those who are actually doing the job. Otherwise, they would take time to figure out what the job was to keep that within those guidelines. So if you have these three kinds of bosses, what would that do to workplace morale? And how much does being accountable, being responsible, and your relationships have to with your attitude and your morale? Your attitude towards a company can really be affected by the type of boss that you have. If you have a great boss, you think, and that boss does things for you, you respect the company because a lot of people think, well, your boss is a reflection of the company. The same thing if you have an abusive boss, you don't respect the company because then you're going to say, why doesn't somebody do something about this person? And that's the same way with the incompetent boss. It becomes a morale issue if you have a terrible boss. So be careful. And also if you have coworkers that are incompetent or abusive. So it really can affect morale. If you are a great employee, nice, you tell your coworkers that you appreciate their work, you appreciate their help, you're improving their morale as well as yours. And the last thing is negative workplace relationships. How many of you have had a really bad relationship with a coworker? I sure know I have. I have in my work time. What does that do? It's terrible. It puts you on edge. You don't want to go to work. It causes problems with your job performance. Or it also, you may do a good job and they're there to make it look bad. So be careful. What can you do to resolve this issue? You can talk to the coworker. You can see what's going on, see what you can do to improve the situation. If that doesn't resolve it, you may want to talk to your supervisor and explain to them what the situation is. If your supervisor doesn't resolve it, you may have to go higher, because you don't have to work under those conditions. It makes your morale, it makes your accountability, your everything is off. So just try to resolve it so that you can get on with life. In the same way, I talk about negative relationships. Sometimes a negative relationship can be caused by socialization. If you socialize with a lot of your fellow employees, it can be good or it can be bad. If you socialize with them out of work, if you go out together to have a drink, you get drunk, you say something that you shouldn't have, it's going to affect your work relationship. So be careful. I'm not saying don't socialize with your fellow employees. I'm saying do it respectfully, because it's very touchy. It'll it'll affect your job. It'll affect your personal relationships also. It's as simple as people not respecting you in the lunchroom. If someone takes your lunch, or if someone at the copier always leaves the copier jammed, it's going to cause problems with workplace relationships that need to be dealt with so that you can get on with your job and you can have the best environment possible. So, okay, I'm going to let you go, and let's see what else you have for chapter 6. Let me see here. Let's go down and let's find chapter 6. There's chapter 6. You have study guide questions. The lecture chat I've taken off of there, so you don't have that. You have an exercise called connecting the dots. I'm going to let you do that. So that's all there is. And this PowerPoint lesson is only if you need it to use it. So that's all for chapter 6. I'll see you for chapter 12.